The stars had never looked so empty. Captain Vance stood at the observation window of the HSS Prometheus, her hands clasped behind her back. The ship moved through a region of space that no human had ever visited before. The Outer Veil, they called it, a place forbidden to humanity by the great powers of the galaxy. But had never been good at following orders that made no sense. The Prometheus was an old ship. She had served humanity for 60 years, carrying scientists and explorers to the far edges of known space. Her hull was from asteroid impacts and solar storms. Her engines hummed with the tired song of a vessel that had seen too many light years. But she still flew, and her crew of 47 souls trusted her with their lives. "Captain," said Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. His voice was calm but heard the tension beneath it. "I'm picking up something strange, bearing 047. It looks like a ship." Turned from the window, "One of ours." "No, ma'am, it's not human, and it's not moving." Torres paused, his fingers dancing across his console. "I think it's a wreck." The bridge fell silent. Every member of the crew knew what finding an alien wreck could mean. New technology, new knowledge, perhaps new enemies. "Take us in," ordered, slowly. The Prometheus changed course, her old engines pushing her toward the unknown object. As they drew closer, the ship's sensors painted a picture that made blood run cold. The wreck was massive. It stretched for nearly 2 kilometers, its hull torn open like the belly of a dead animal. Strange symbols covered its surface, symbols that no human had ever seen before. This was not a ship from any of the 12 species of the Dominion, the great coalition that ruled most of the galaxy. This was something else, something older. "Send a team," said. "I want to know who built this ship and what killed it." 3 hours later, Chief Engineer returned from the wreck. His face was pale, and his hands shook as he handed a data pad. "You need to see this, Captain," he said. "You need to see what we found." Took the pad and began to read. At first, the information seemed like simple historical records, dates and names, population counts, star charts. But as she read deeper, the true horror of the discovery became clear. The ship belonged to a species called They had been a peaceful people, builders and artists who had lived on 7 worlds in a distant corner of the galaxy. 1,000 years ago, they had made first contact with the Dominion. 6 months later, they were extinct. Every man, woman, and child, every city, every library, every song they had ever sung. Gone, erased from existence by the very species who now smiled at humanity across diplomatic tables. "There's more," said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They weren't the only ones. We found records of 37 different species. All of them contacted the Dominion. All of them were destroyed within a year of first contact." Felt her stomach turn. She thought of Earth, of the blue oceans and green forests, of the children playing in parks and the old people telling stories. Humanity had made contact with the Dominion just 50 years ago. They had always wondered why the Dominion kept them at arm's length, why certain regions of space were forbidden, why the great powers of the galaxy treated humans like children who needed to be watched. Now she knew. Humanity was not being protected. Humanity was being prepared, like cattle being fattened before the slaughter. "We need to warn Earth," said. "We need to send this information to every human colony. Everyone needs to know what's coming." But before she could give the order, the alarms began to scream. "Captain," Torres shouted. "Multiple hyperspace signatures, ships incoming." The main screen flickered to life, showing a tactical display that made hearts stop. Ships were appearing from nowhere, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in a great ring around the Prometheus. Not 10 ships, not 50. 800. The largest fleet had ever seen, and it was all pointed at her single, aging explorer vessel. A voice crackled over the communication system. It was cold and ancient, speaking in the common language of the galaxy. "Human vessel Prometheus. This is High Arbiter Oran of the Dominion. You have entered forbidden space and accessed restricted materials. This is a crime punishable by immediate termination. You have no rights. You will receive no trial. Your destruction will serve as a message to your primitive species." Stared at the screen, 800 warships, each one larger than the Prometheus, each one carrying enough firepower to crack a moon in half. They had been sent to kill 47 humans on one old ship. The Dominion was not taking any chances. They wanted to make absolutely sure that the truth never reached Earth. They wanted to crush any hope of resistance before it could begin. Should have been afraid. She should have been thinking about surrender, about begging for mercy, about finding some way to survive the next few hours. Instead, she smiled. She said quietly, "It's time." The old engineer nodded, understanding passing between them. They had carried a secret for 5 years, a secret that even most of the crew did not know. A weapon system recovered from another wreck, another battle, another time when someone had fought the Dominion and won. Project Titan. The transmission said, "If we activate Titan, we won't have enough power to send the full data package to Earth." Looked at her crew. These men and women had trusted her with their lives. They had followed her into forbidden space, into danger, into the jaws of extinction. They deserved the truth. "Listen to me," she said, her voice carrying across the bridge. "We have 12 hours before those ships are in firing range. We can run, we might even escape. But if we run, the truth dies with us. Earth will never know, our families will never know, and one day the Dominion will come for them and they will die wondering why." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Or we can stay, we can fight. We can make sure that the Dominion never silences another species again. But I won't order you to die. This choice belongs to each of you." The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then Lieutenant Torres stood. "I have a daughter on Mars," he said. "She's 7 years old. If staying here means she gets to grow up free, then I'm staying." One by one, the others stood as well. Every single member of the bridge crew. Felt tears burn in her eyes, but she held them back. There would be time for tears later, or perhaps there wouldn't. "Then let's show them what happens when you corner a human," she said. Outside the window, 800 warships began to move. The clock was ticking. High Arbiter Oran watched the small human ship through the viewing screen of his command vessel. He had lived for over 3,000 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had personally ordered the destruction of 6 intelligent species. This mission bored him. 800 warships for one tiny human vessel. It was like sending an army to crush an insect. But the Dominion Council had been clear. The humans had found the evidence. The humans had to die, all of them, and the message had to be loud enough for every human colony to hear. "Such a waste of resources," Oran said to his second-in-command, a reptilian creature named. "These humans are barely more than animals. They discovered fire, 50,000 years ago? They are children playing with toys they do not understand." Nodded, his scales catching the cold light of the bridge. "The Council fears their numbers, High Arbiter. There are nearly 20 billion humans spread across their colonies. They breed like parasites." Oran waved a thin, gray hand. "Numbers mean nothing without technology, without wisdom. We could destroy every human world in a single cycle if we wished. This exercise is simply to remind them of their place." He pressed a button on his chair, opening a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships begin approach pattern, standard formation. We will be in firing range in 11 hours. There is no rush. Let them feel fear. Let them understand what it means to challenge the Dominion." 800 ships began to move as one, a wall of death slowly closing around the Prometheus. On board the human vessel, the crew worked in grim silence. Captain Vance had gathered her senior officers in the engineering bay, deep in the heart of the ship. The room was cramped and hot, filled with machines that hummed and clicked. In the center stood a device that none of them had ever activated. A black cylinder, 2 meters tall, covered in symbols that looked almost alive. "Project Titan." 5 years ago, began, a survey ship found wreckage in the system. The wreckage came from a battle between Dominion forces and an unknown enemy. The Dominion won, but barely. 3 of their capital ships were destroyed completely. He touched the black cylinder, and it pulsed with faint blue light. "This was recovered from one of those ships. We spent years trying to understand it. The science is beyond anything we've ever seen. It's based on machines so small they can rebuild matter at the atomic level, but 1,000 times more advanced than anything humans have created." Lieutenant Torres frowned. "What does it do?" Looked at Captain Vance. She nodded, giving him permission to continue. "It transforms things," said. "When we activate it, these will spread through the Prometheus. They will rebuild her, make her stronger, faster, more deadly. The ship will become something else entirely. We call it a Titanic configuration." "Why haven't we used this before?" asked Dr. Sarah, the ship's medical officer. If we have this technology, why hasn't Earth built a fleet of these Titanic ships? His face grew dark. Because we don't fully control it. They learn, they adapt. They make decisions on their own. Earth Command was afraid of what might happen if we gave machines this powerful the ability to think for themselves. They buried the project, classified it at the highest level. Only a handful of people know it exists. And you brought it on a survey mission? Tors asked, disbelief in his voice. Spoke for the first time. I brought it because I knew something was wrong. The Dominion has been watching humanity too closely, restricting our movements too much. I wanted to know why. Now we know. She looked at each of her officers in turn. We can activate Titan and fight. The ship will transform and we will have a chance against those warships. Not a good chance, but a chance. The problem is power. Running Titan will drain our reactors. We won't have enough energy to send a full transmission to Earth. So we can fight or we can warn home, Doctor said quietly. But not both. Not quite, said. We can send a short burst transmission, coordinates, the basic evidence files, maybe a few seconds of video, enough to prove what we found. But the detailed records, the full proof, that would require more power than we'll have. Nodded, Earth will know the truth. They'll know where to look, but they won't have everything they need unless someone comes to find what's left of us. The room fell silent. Every person there understood what she was saying. They were going to die. The only question was whether their deaths would mean something. 11 hours, that was how long they had. Tors broke the silence. Captain, I've been doing the math. Even if we transform, even if Titan works perfectly, we're still facing 800 ships. Each one has more firepower than our entire fleet back home. How do we win? Smiled, but there was no joy in it. We don't win, Lieutenant. We survive long enough to matter. We hurt them badly enough that Earth will have time to prepare. We make them regret sending only 800 ships. She turned to, how long to bring Titan online? 6 hours for full integration. They need time to spread through every system. Then start now. Everyone else, I want damage control teams ready. Medical bay prepared for casualties. And someone find me the best bottle of whiskey on this ship. If we're going to die, we're going to do it properly. The officers scattered to their tasks, leaving alone with the black cylinder and the weight of 47 lives on her shoulders. 6 hours later, the Prometheus had changed. The transformation had been slow at first, then faster as the hull plates shifted and thickened. New weapon systems grew from the ship's skin like teeth from a jaw. The engines, once tired and worn, now burned with a light that was almost blinding. The ship was still recognizable, but barely. She had become something predatory, something hungry. On the bridge, sat in her command chair and watched the Dominion fleet approach. They were in range now. 800 ships arranged in perfect formation, confident in their overwhelming power. A communication light blinked. The Dominion was hailing them. Open the channel. High Arbiter Oran's face appeared on the screen. He was gray-skinned and ancient, with eyes that held nothing but contempt. Human vessel, he said. I see you have done something to your ship. It will not save you. Nothing can save you. Your species will be remembered as a footnote in galactic history. A minor annoyance that was easily corrected. Leaned forward, making sure her face filled his screen. You've been killing species for thousands of years, she said. You've forgotten what it feels like to fight someone who knows they're going to die. She smiled, wide and dangerous. You should have sent more ships. She cut the channel and looked at her crew. Send the transmission to Earth, everything we have, then raise shields and charge weapons. The stars outside the window were no longer empty. They were filled with enemies. And the Prometheus was hungry. The first shot came from a Dominion destroyer called the Eternal Silence. It was a beam of pure energy, bright enough to blind anyone who looked directly at it. The weapon had cracked open planets. It had ended civilizations. It struck the Prometheus and did nothing. They had rebuilt the ship's shields using principles that Dominion science could not explain. The energy beam hit the barrier and scattered like water against a rock. The Prometheus absorbed the impact, analyzed it, and learned. Then she fired back. No one on the Dominion fleet expected what happened next. The Prometheus had been a survey vessel. Her weapons were meant for clearing asteroid fields and warning off pirates. She should have had nothing that could threaten a warship. But the Prometheus was no longer a survey vessel. A lance of white fire erupted from her hull, punching through the eternal silence like a needle through paper. The destroyer exploded from within, its reactor going critical in a flash of blue light. 1,000 Dominion soldiers died in an instant. First blood. High Arbiter Oran stared at his tactical display in disbelief. A human ship had just destroyed one of his destroyers with a single shot. That was impossible. Human technology was primitive. Human weapons were toys. All ships, he commanded, his voice steady despite his shock. Open fire, destroy that vessel immediately. 799 ships turned their weapons on the Prometheus. The space around the human vessel became a storm of energy beams, missiles, and projectiles. Enough firepower to reduce a moon to rubble poured toward the tiny ship. Captain Vance gripped her chair as the universe tried to kill her. The shields held. They worked faster than any computer, redirecting power, adapting to each new weapon, learning the patterns of Dominion technology. Every shot that hit them made the shields stronger. Every attack taught the Prometheus how to fight back. Return fire, ordered. All weapons, pick your targets. The Prometheus moved like nothing her size should be able to move. The engines that they had rebuilt pushed her through space at impossible speeds, dodging and weaving through the wall of enemy fire. At the same time, new weapons emerged from her hull. Weapons that had not existed minutes ago, designed in real time by machines that learned faster than organic minds could think. 20 Dominion ships died in the first minute. 30 more in the second. On the bridge of his flagship, Oran watched his fleet being torn apart by a single vessel. His ancient heart felt something it had not felt in over 1,000 years. Fear. What is that thing? Demanded, his scales pale with terror. That is not human technology, that is something else. Oran knew exactly what it was. He had seen it before in the records of the old wars. Wars that the Dominion had fought before they ruled the galaxy. Wars against an enemy so powerful that victory had seemed impossible. The architects. They had been a machine race, beings of pure artificial intelligence who had built wonders beyond imagination. The Dominion had fought them for 1,000 years before finally winning. The cost had been staggering. Entire species in the Dominion had been wiped out. Whole regions of space had been burned clean of life. The Dominion had destroyed every piece of architect technology they could find. They had erased all records of the war. They had made sure that no one would ever learn how close they had come to extinction. But somehow the humans had found something. Somehow they had brought the old enemy back to life. Pull the fleet back, Oran ordered. Regroup at maximum range. We need to coordinate our attacks. But the Prometheus was not interested in letting them regroup. Pushed her ship forward, chasing the retreating Dominion vessels. The Prometheus was everywhere at once, striking at weak points, exploiting gaps in formation, hitting ships before they could raise their shields. Though that covered her hull rippled and shifted, forming new weapons for each target, adapting to each defense. The crew worked in perfect harmony with the machine. Tors called out targets, kept the power flowing. Doctor treated the wounded while the ship shook around her, and commanded it all, her mind moving as fast as themselves. 3 hours into the battle, 200 Dominion ships had been destroyed. But the Prometheus was paying a price. The shields were still holding, but they were weaker now. The reactors were struggling to keep up with the power demands. They could rebuild almost anything, but they could not create energy from nothing. They were feeding on the ship itself, converting matter into power. Captain said, his voice tight with exhaustion, "We're at 60% reactor capacity. The transformation took more out of us than we expected. If we keep fighting at this level, we'll be dead in 2 hours." Nodded, she had known this was coming. The math had never been on their side. "Did the transmission reach Earth?" she asked. Tors checked his console. Confirmed, they received everything, short burst, but it got through, Earth knows. Closed her eyes for a moment. That was all that mattered. Earth would learn the truth. Earth would have time to prepare. Whatever happened next, she had done her job. "Then we keep fighting," she said. "We make every minute count." She opened a channel to the entire ship. Her voice carried to every corner of the Prometheus, to every crew member still alive. "This is your captain. I know you're tired. I know you're scared. I know some of you are hurt, but I need you to listen to me now." She paused, gathering her strength. "We have done the impossible. We have stood against the greatest military force in the galaxy and made them bleed. 200 of their ships are burning because of us, because of what we did together. Our families on Earth will hear about this day. Our children will tell stories about this battle, and one day when humanity is free, they will remember the Prometheus. She looked at the tactical display. 600 Dominion ships were still out there, regrouping for another assault. We're not going to win this fight. We never expected to. But we can make them remember us. We can make them afraid. We can show the galaxy what happens when you try to destroy humanity. She smiled, and her crew saw it on every screen. So let's give them something to remember. The Dominion fleet began its final approach. 600 ships in perfect formation, their weapons charged, their commanders hungry for revenge. The Prometheus turned to face them. And across every frequency in the sector, the ship began to broadcast a sound that made the Dominion soldiers freeze in their seats. Laughter. Human laughter. The final battle had begun. The message arrived on Earth at 3 in the morning, local time in Geneva. It was short, just coordinates, data files, and a few seconds of video showing Captain Vance speaking into a camera. Her words were simple and direct. The Dominion is coming to kill us all. This is the proof. Tell everyone, prepare to fight. The Prometheus will hold as long as we can. Within an hour, every government on Earth had seen the message. Within 2 hours, every news network was broadcasting it. Within 4 hours, 20 billion humans knew that they had been marked for extinction. The reaction was unlike anything in human history. There was no panic. There was no chaos. There was only a cold, quiet anger that spread across every colony, every station, every ship in human space. Parents looked at their children and felt something ancient awaken in their hearts, something that remembered what it meant to be hunted, something that refused to accept death. Admiral Helena was 73 years old. She had retired from the military 15 years ago after a career that had taken her to every corner of human space. She had been sleeping in her small apartment on Mars when the call came. "We need you," said the voice on the other end. "Everyone is being called back, everyone." Helena looked at the image on her screen. The Prometheus alone against hundreds of enemy ships. Her grandson was on that vessel. "Send me the coordinates," she said. "I'm on my way." All across human space, the same scene repeated itself. Retired soldiers put on old uniforms. Civilian pilots reported to military stations. Factory workers abandoned their posts to join the fleet. Ships that had never been designed for combat were loaded with weapons and volunteers. And then the second message arrived. It came from the Prometheus again, but this time it was not words. It was data, technical specifications, blueprints, the complete files for Project Titan. Had sent everything. Every secret, every design, every piece of knowledge that humanity had gained from the ancient technology. He was giving his species a weapon. Engineers across human space looked at the files and understood immediately. The technology was complex, but the basic principle was simple. Build the generators, install them on ships, activate them. Any ship could become a Titan. Factories that had been building consumer products shifted to producing generators. Scientists who had spent their careers studying safe, boring projects threw themselves into military research. In shipyards across human space, vessels of every size were being modified for war. 12 hours after the first message, the human fleet began to assemble. They gathered at a point in deep space, far from any planet or station. Warships arrived first, their captains eager for battle. But they were soon joined by other vessels, cargo ships with hastily installed weapons, mining vessels with their drilling lasers converted to military use. Even passenger liners, their luxury cabins stripped bare and filled with Marines. 12,000 ships. It was every vessel humanity could spare, every ship that could make the journey, every pilot willing to risk their life. Admiral Helena stood on the bridge of the HSS Vengeance, the flagship of this desperate fleet. She looked at the tactical display and felt tears in her eyes, not from sadness but from pride. "Is everyone ready?" she asked. "All ships report green," her first officer replied. "Generators are online. We're ready to transform on your command." Helena nodded. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Admiral. In a few minutes, we're going to jump into the outer veil. The Dominion has sent 800 warships to destroy one of our survey vessels. They expect to find a single ship and 47 humans." She paused, letting her words sink in. They're going to find something else. They're going to find 12,000 ships and 3 million humans who are very, very angry. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten our people. Today, we show them that humanity does not go quietly. Today, we make them regret every species they ever destroyed. She took a deep breath. All ships activate Titan protocols. Jump on my mark. Across the fleet, generators hummed to life. Ships began to change, their hulls shifting and growing, their weapons multiplying, their shields strengthening. Cargo vessels became predators. Mining ships became monsters. Even the smallest craft transformed into something deadly. 3, 2, 1, mark. 12,000 ships vanished into hyperspace. In the outer veil, the battle had reached its final stage. The Prometheus was dying. Her shields were failing. Her weapons were running dry. Half her crew was dead or wounded. Captain Vance sat in her command chair, blood running down her face from a cut on her forehead, watching the end approach. 300 Dominion ships remained. They had surrounded the Prometheus, cutting off every escape route. High Arbiter Oran was taking no more chances. He had ordered his ships to fire in coordinated waves, overwhelming the human vessel's ability to adapt. Shields at 12%, Torres reported, his voice hollow with exhaustion. Reactor critical, we have maybe 10 minutes left. Nodded 10 minutes. It was more than she had expected. They had fought for 9 hours. They had destroyed 500 enemy ships. They had done the impossible. It would have to be enough. All hands, she said softly, it has been an honor. And then the hyperspace alarms went off. Not one alarm, all of them, every sensor on the ship screaming at once. Torres stared at his console, his eyes wide. Captain, contacts incoming, multiple contacts, thousands of contacts. The stars around them split open and ships began to pour through. Human ships, ships of every size and shape, ships that burned with the light of Titan technology. 12,000 vessels, arranged in perfect formation, their weapons already charging. The Prometheus crew stared in disbelief. They had expected to die alone. They had expected no one to come. But humanity had come, all of humanity. Admiral's voice crackled over the communication system, reaching both the Prometheus and the Dominion fleet. Attention, Dominion vessels. This is Admiral Helena of the Human Defense Fleet. You have attacked our people. You have murdered our citizens. You have planned the extinction of our species. Her voice was cold as ice. We are here to discuss your surrender. You have 60 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. If you choose to fight, we will destroy you, all of you. There will be no survivors. There will be no mercy. You wanted to send a message. The fleet opened fire. So did we. The Battle of the Outer Veil lasted exactly 17 minutes. 300 Dominion warships faced 12,000 human vessels, each one transformed by Titan technology into something terrible and beautiful. The Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had destroyed 37 intelligent species. They had never lost a battle. They lost this one. The human fleet struck like a wave of fire. Ships that had been cargo vessels tore through Dominion destroyers. Mining craft that had spent years drilling asteroids now drilled through enemy hulls. Even the smallest human ships fought with a fury that shocked the ancient warriors of the Dominion. These were not soldiers. These were parents fighting for their children, grandparents fighting for their, ordinary people who had looked at extinction and chosen to fight instead of surrender. High Arbiter Oran watched his fleet die around him. Ship after ship vanished from his tactical display, replaced by the cold marker that meant destruction. His officers were screaming orders, trying to organize a retreat, but there was nowhere to run. The humans had surrounded them completely. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "They are children, they are insects, how are they doing this?" But he knew the answer. He had seen it in the eyes of Captain Vance when she had smiled at him across the communication channel. He had heard it in Admiral's voice when she demanded his surrender. The humans were not afraid. Every species the Dominion had destroyed had begged for mercy at the end. They had offered surrender. They had tried to negotiate. They had hoped that if they submitted, some of them might be allowed to live. The humans had never even considered it. They had known from the beginning that surrender meant death, so they had chosen to fight. Not because they thought they could win, but because fighting was the only choice that let them keep their dignity. the only choice that gave their deaths meaning. And now, against all odds, they were winning. "All ships," Oran commanded, his voice steady despite his terror. "Focus fire on the human flagship. Kill Admiral, break their command structure." 200 Dominion ships turned their weapons on the Vengeance. Energy beams and missiles converged on the human vessel from every direction. The Vengeance did not retreat. She did not even try to dodge. Instead, Admiral pushed her ship forward, straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Her shields absorbed the first wave of attacks, then the second. The Titan rebuilt what was damaged, adapted to what they could not stop, learned from every hit. "All weapons ordered, fire at will." The Vengeance became a storm of destruction. She tore through the Dominion formation like a wolf through sheep, leaving burning wreckage in her wake. Other human ships followed, exploiting the gaps she created, finishing off wounded enemies. In 10 minutes, the Dominion fleet was reduced to 50 ships. In 15 minutes, it was 20. In 17 minutes, only one Dominion vessel remained, the flagship, Iran's personal command ship. Admiral brought the Vengeance alongside the crippled enemy vessel. Her weapons were locked on target. One more shot would end this forever. She opened a communication channel. "High Arbiter Iran, your fleet is destroyed. Your weapons are offline. You have no escape. By the authority vested in me by the people of Earth, I am placing you under arrest for crimes against sentient life." There was silence for a long moment. Then Iran's face appeared on the screen. He looked old, older than his 3,000 years. His eyes held nothing but defeat. "You cannot arrest me," he said. "I am a High Arbiter of the Dominion. My immunity is guaranteed by galactic law." Smiled, it was not a kind smile. "Your galactic law died with your fleet. We're writing new laws now. And the first one is this: those who plan genocide will answer for their crimes." Marine boarding craft launched from the Vengeance. Human soldiers in battle armor forced their way onto the Dominion flagship. They found Iran on his bridge, surrounded by the bodies of his officers. He had killed them himself rather than let them face human justice. He had not been brave enough to kill himself. 2 days later, Captain Vance woke up in a hospital bed on the Vengeance. Her ship had survived, barely. The Prometheus had been so damaged that she would never fly again, but her crew had been rescued. 23 of the original 47 had lived. 23 people who had faced 800 warships and refused to break. Was waiting by her bedside when she opened her eyes. "You're famous now," he said, smiling through tears. "The whole galaxy is talking about the Prometheus, the ship that stood alone against an armada." Tried to sit up, winced at the pain, and lay back down. "The fleet, did everyone make it?" "We lost 400 ships, 12,000 casualties." Smile faded. "But we won, Captain, we actually won." Closed her eyes. 400 ships, 12,000 people. It was a terrible price. But when she thought about what they had been fighting for, what would have happened if they had lost, she knew it had been worth it. 1 year later, Captain Vance stood before the first meeting of the new Galactic Assembly. The Dominion had fallen. After the Battle of the Outer Veil, human ships had pushed into Dominion space. They had not come as conquerors. They had come as liberators. Dozens of species that had lived under Dominion rule for thousands of years rose up against their masters. The great coalition that had terrorized the galaxy crumbled in months. Now, representatives from 53 species gathered to build something new, something better. Looked out at the assembled delegates. She saw faces of every shape and color. Species that had been enemies were now allies. Worlds that had been enslaved were now free. 1 year ago, she said, I was the captain of a small survey ship. I had 47 crew members and a mission to explore the unknown. I never expected to start a war. She paused, remembering the faces of the 24 crew members who had not survived. The Dominion believed that humanity was weak. They believed that we would accept extinction without a fight. They believed that because we were young, because we were small, because we had not conquered the stars for thousands of years, we were not worthy of survival. Her voice grew stronger. They were wrong. Humanity has always known what it means to be small. We spent our entire history fighting against things bigger and stronger than ourselves. We learned that the size of the fight matters more than the size of the fighter. We learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision that something else is more important. She looked directly at the cameras, knowing that her words would reach every human world. The Dominion sent an armada to crush a single human ship. They wanted to send a message. Instead, they created a legend. They created a galaxy where no species will ever be erased again. They created a future where freedom belongs to everyone who is willing to fight for it. She smiled, and this time there was joy in it. That is humanity's gift to the galaxy. That is our answer to extinction. She raised her hand in salute. Welcome to the new era. Welcome to freedom. The assembly erupted in cheers. 53 species, once divided by fear and hatred, now united by hope. And somewhere in the back of the hall, the battered hull of the Prometheus hung as a memorial, her wounds preserved forever. A reminder that even the smallest ship can change the galaxy.